Hey everybody, I'm going to try to do this in one take, so if I mess up, please forgive me. My name is Lauren Tracy. I was born here in Wichita, Kansas in 1981. My sister was born in 1982, and after that my family moved to Colorado. My parents had a very hard struggle with drugs and alcohol, and that really affected my sister and I in a great way. There were times when we would be left home alone for sometimes 3 or 4 days at a time, and my sister and I really relied on each other early on in our childhood growing up. And we would go to the house, and if there was food, that was great. Sometimes there wasn't. Sometimes there was a spring out of one of the mountains, and we would go there a lot and drink from the spring, and there was always wild berries growing, and it sounds kind of surreal to think about now, but that was our childhood. And I distinctly remember the day I came home to get some food, and my grandparents were there at the house, and they had drove their truck and camper out here to see how things were going. And my parents were gone, and my sister and I showed up at the house just in our underwear, and that was just how it was. We just ran around with whatever we wanted on, and we were just kids. We were, I think my sister was probably around 5 or 7 or 8 years old at the time, and they took us home, back with them home to Wichita, and we saw some doctors and got the health care that we needed, and I found out that I loved food. So that's another part of the story. But my sister and I started to go to church with my uncle, and he was a very wise man, and love him a lot. His name was Craig Atherton, and I distinctly remember the day that I asked my uncle what the difference was between the people in church and my family. That I could tell a difference between these parents that spent time with their children, spent time with them not just at church but outside of church, going to their school events and those types of things. And that's when he took the opportunity to share Christ with me. And I remember very vividly asking him to pray to accept Christ, and that was something that just burned inside of me. And then he took the time and explained the gospel to me and prayed with me, and I accepted Christ. And then after that, he mentored me. He showed me how to read the Bible. He showed me how to have a quiet time. He showed me how to share the gospel with other people. And I think I was probably 11 years old when I prayed with someone else, when I shared the gospel with someone else to accept Christ. So God used him in a very big way early on in my life, and he still has a huge impact on my life today as a 30-year-old man. So I'm very thankful for the struggles that I faced early on in childhood, that God's grace protected me and my sister and kept us safe. But like I said, I liked to spend time with him and to glean as much as I could from him. And there was just a passion that burned inside of me to know Christ more, to read his word. And I definitely remember thinking I had to get a job so I could afford to buy books and materials. So I got a job at a taco place down the street from our house, and worked there. I think I was 12 or 13 years old, so I'm not looking back in retrospect not sure how legitimate that was, but I always got paid in cash, and I had money that I could order materials from American Family Radio, from different pastors that I heard online. I remember thinking that I didn't have a direct immediate family example of how a husband should treat a wife, and some of the early series that I bought from radio shows were on marriage and relationships, and how to treat a woman and how to relate to your wife, and how to honor her. And so I was buying those things when I was still pretty young, probably 12, 13 years old, and reading some pretty heavy books too at the time. I I remember the first time I read Knowledge of the Holy. I was 13 years old and have read it several times since then and still don't quite get all of it. But that's just part of where it really began for me as a Christian in my testimony. From there, when my grandparents picked me up, we found out that I loved to eat and I loved to play football. I was very good at that. And in junior high, I was 5'10", 5'11", probably close to 185 pounds, and just really dominated the sport. And my coaches actually had to carry around a copy of my birth certificate proving that I was the right age to play sports. And all through high school, my passion for Christ continued to grow, and but also my passion for football continued to grow. And eventually, as my senior year came around, football overshadowed my first love. And I was recruited at a Division I level to play football, and my second week at training camp for football, I broke my tibia and fibia, my ACL, my MCL, and my meniscus tore. So I had to have complete reconstructive surgery on my left leg, and that was just a very humbling coming back to Christ experience for me. It took about 2 years before I would say I had complete recovery. I had several several surgeries to repair everything that had happened. So during this time, I was able to get back. God brought me back to my first love, Him, and kind of had a personal revival time, and it was sweet. It was very sweet and hard, because that had become such an overshadowing part of football had become such an overshadowing part of my identity and who I was, that I had to ask myself the question, if who I am is what I do or what I have, and that's lost, then who am I? So the importance of identity really came through in that experience. Do I identify as a Christian? Do I identify with Christ? Or is it who I am and what I have? So that all took place when I was 18 years old. So by the time I was about 21, that experience, that time, had kind of come to a close. And I left my uncle's church and went to, there was nobody really there that was my age, and I went to Central Christian Church, and that's where I became a part of the college group there, and eventually leading the college ministry at Central Christian Church. That is also where I met David Mann, who had a huge impact in my life in deepening my faith. And during that time, college ministry to me is a very interesting thing, because if you are there, it's the first time in your life that you are a part of a ministry because you want to be there. So your parents aren't making you go, and it's something that you put your heart into willingly. So your parents aren't dropping you off and making you go to Sunday school or do youth group, and you're there because you want to be there, without a doubt. So that was a time of building family spiritually for me. It was an amazing time of just camaraderie and building brothers and sisters in Christ that I still know and love to this day. So that's where I learned a lot of basic ministry steps and materials, and how to counsel with people in ministry, and how to set up a trip, how to organize a camp, and all of the logistical things that go into doing something like that. Also in my relationship with David Mann, it was very much a deepening and a strengthening of my faith, beginning to ask myself the harder questions about theology and doctrine, and why those things matter. So it's really where the word kerasso came to my mind when thinking about this, that it's the idea, the Greek word for character is kerasso, and it's the idea of a deep etching on stone that it does not wash away. It does not go away. So that building of character really came through in my relationship with David Mann and that accountability. So that was just a fantastic time of growth in my personal life, in my ministry, and helping to share the gospel by the grace of God. So from there, I went to Metro East Baptist Church, and I worked as associate youth pastor for 2.5 years, and worked under Chris McGee, who was, I would say, my refiner's fire in a way that the Holy Spirit used in my life. So I went from learning how to prepare a lesson at Central Christian Church to how to refine that with Chris, and how to minister well, how to meet people at different levels. So we don't all get ministry or need ministry at the same place, at the same level. That there is refinement to that. So that was really taught to me with Chris. So excuse me. That was a big part of that for me, was that refinement, becoming cleaner, I guess, in ministry, more meticulous in ministry. So that is also where I met my beautiful bride, Morgan, and she is a tool and an instrument that God uses in my life every day, and holding me accountable, asking me hard questions, pushing me to grow and mature spiritually, and all of the beautiful and wonderful things that our wives do for us. So God has used her to bless me with my son, Lauren Edward Tracy IV, who is just the joy of my heart. I never really imagined that I would ever have a kid, but I knew I wanted kids, but now he's here, and he's almost 2 years old now, and it's still very surreal to me that I'm a father. But by God's grace, I pray for him daily that he will grow to know and fear the Lord when the time is right. If you have any questions for me at all about my testimony and growing up, please feel free to message me or to email me or call me, and I would love to talk with you all about that. But one of the things that I do want to point out that people often ask me about when I share my testimony is sometimes people have this odd desire that they wish that they were a part of something like my childhood, like they want something, some kind of a grit to stick to, that some kind of excitement or an adventure. And I do not share my testimony in any way to glorify my parents' sin or the struggles that we went through as children. So it is only by God's grace, and it is only to His glory that I am who I am, and that those people in my life were used by Him to His glory, and those people would give God the glory for how they were used in my life. So please do not think in any way that I'm glorifying the bad things that happened in my life. So yeah, like I said before, if you have any questions, please let me know, and I would love to speak with you and share more if you have any other questions. So God bless. Thanks, guys.